Am I the a-hole for kicking out a mom and her kid after they kept disrupting the store? I, 26 female, work as an assistant manager at a clothing store in a busy shopping center. We get kids in the store all the time. It's not a problem. This story is not about a kid being a kid. It's about a parent refusing to parent. A mom comes in with her son, maybe 6 or 7. At first, everything's fine. She's browsing racks, he's walking around. Then he starts running. Not just walking fast, but full on sprinting between aisles, weaving around other customers. I gently ask him to slow down. His mom doesn't look up from her phone. A few minutes later, I hear a crash. He's knocked over a display of folded sweaters. I go over and say nicely, "Hey buddy, let's use our walking feet in the store, okay?" His mom finally looks up and says he's just bored. I say, "I understand, but he can't run in the store." She shrugs and goes back to scrolling. 10 minutes later, he's sliding under clothing racks, pulling hangers off, and repeatedly pushing the automatic door button so it keeps opening and closing. Other customers are staring, and one woman almost trips. I approach the mom again and say, "I'm really sorry, but if he can't stay with you and walk safely, I'll need you to help keep him close." She sighs and says, "Wow, you really don't like kids, do you?" I tell her that's not true. We just need to keep everyone safe. She rolls her eyes and says maybe if your store had something for children to do, this wouldn't be an issue. As she says this, her son grabs a mannequin's arm and starts swinging it. And that's it. I ask her to please leave the store. She freezes and says, "Are you serious right now?" I explain that her child is causing safety issues and disrupting other shoppers. She raises her voice and says, "So you're kicking us out because my child exists?" I respond calmly, "No. I'm asking you to leave because your son isn't being supervised and is damaging store property." She starts filming me and says she's going to post this everywhere. I tell her she's welcome to, but she still needs to leave. She yanks her son by the arm, knocking over another display on the way out, and yells, "This place is anti-family." Later that night, a review shows up saying we were hostile towards mothers and traumatized a child for being energetic. So am I the a-hole for kicking out an entitled mom and her disruptive kid instead of just letting it go? As a parent of an almost 2-year-old, I can definitely relate to not always feeling like you have control over your child, but it sounds like this woman wasn't even trying. Because for some reason she was just like stuck in her phone, doom scrolling. I don't know what she was doing exactly, but she definitely wasn't paying attention to her kid, and she was letting him run wild. It's not a store's responsibility for there to be things to keep your kid busy and entertained. That's your responsibility. Whether you give them an iPad, a book to read, or I don't know, but find something to keep them entertained. Because if they're running up and down the aisles and they're causing people to trip and they're knocking things over, like, why do you think that that is okay? Why do you think that that is an acceptable thing to allow your kid to do? Especially if you're not going to pick up after them or even attempt to control the situation. It's kind of funny too. This story immediately made me think about our daughter's tendency to start literally yelling at the top of her lungs because she's bored and she's at the stage of just trying to explore her voice. So whether we're at home and this is happening or we're in a restaurant trying to eat and she's doing this, then that means it's our responsibility to try to keep her entertained by either doing something to distract her from her own boredom and wanting to screech by either singing a song or counting 1 through 5 or something. You know, it's embarrassing. It kind of sucks. If people are staring and they're annoyed, it's because they don't really understand, perhaps, but it's your responsibility to fix the situation at the end of the day. As far as the original poster of this story, you're definitely not the a-hole for kicking out this entitled mom. I don't even blame the kid. I worry for society that this child is going to grow up and be an absolute POS if the mother continues to refuse to actually parent. Because if you let your kids run wild, then I don't know what you expect. And you're just going to create more problems for yourself if you don't take care of it early on. Am I the a-hole for refusing a return when a customer said TikTok said I could do it? I, 22 female, work part-time at a popular clothing store in the mall. Think trendy basics, loud music, and a return policy that's printed on the receipt, posted at the register, and literally on the wall behind me. A girl around my age comes up to the counter with a sweater. No bag, no tags, no receipt. She slides it over and says, "I want to return this." I ask if she has the receipt or the card she paid with. She says, "No, but I bought it like a while ago." I explain that without a receipt, we can only do a store credit if the item still has tags, and this one doesn't. She frowns and says, "But I didn't wear it." The sweater is visibly pilled. I gently point that out and repeat the policy. She crosses her arms and says, "That's not what TikTok said." I asked what she means. She says there's a video where a girl returns clothing without anything and the cashier has to do it. I tell her our system literally won't allow a return without proof of purchase. She laughs and says, "Okay, but can you just override it?" I explain that I can't, and even managers can't without a receipt. She leans in and whispers like she's sharing a secret. "I'll take store credit. I don't care." I explain again that no tags equals no return, no credit. She sighs dramatically and says, "This is why people steal." That stopped me. I tell her I'm sorry she feels that way, but I can't process the return. She asks for a manager. Manager comes up and says the exact same thing. She looks between us and goes, "Wow, so you're really choosing a corporation over a real person." My manager responds calmly, "We're choosing the return policy." She scoffs, grabs a sweater and says, "Fine, I'll just keep it and leave a review," and she storms out. 30 minutes later, my manager shows me a 1-star review accusing us of hating young women and refusing refunds out of spite. My coworker thinks it's funny. My manager backed me completely. But a small part of me wonders if I should have been nicer. So am I the a-hole for not breaking policy when a customer said TikTok told her she could return anything? Well, obviously not. I don't know where somebody would get the idea that some yo-yo on TikTok making a claim like that is just gospel. Like, it makes zero sense that that would be the case. And the policy is very clearly written, and it's a very reasonable policy as well. If you can't provide the receipts, then if the item is clearly in good condition and unused and has tags on it, then they'll give you store credit. Like, that's more than reasonable. If they can take it back from you and put it back on the shelf like nothing ever happened, then they'll let you purchase something else. That's a very reasonable policy. But for you to not be able to prove that the purchase had been made and then just expect money back, or even trying to get store credit after realizing you're not going to get that. I mean, you have to accept that, they can't just bend to your will for no reason. And they were being perfectly reasonable with you. At the end of the day, you can't always get what you want. Grow up. Am I the a-hole for telling an older customer that back in your day isn't our return policy? I, 23 male, work in a big box home goods store. I mostly run the customer service desk, which includes returns, exchanges, online pickups, all the fun stuff. One afternoon, a man in his late 60s comes up pushing a cart with a clearly used coffee maker. No box, no manual, no receipt. The carafe still has coffee stains in it. He sets it down and says, "This thing doesn't work. I want my money back." I asked when he bought it. He shrugs and says, "A couple years ago, maybe more." I explained that our return window is 30 days and requires proof of purchase. He immediately gets annoyed and says, "Well, that's ridiculous. Back in my day, if something didn't work, the store stood behind it." I tell him I understand, but there's nothing I can do without a receipt, and especially not after that long. He leans over the counter and says, "So you're calling me a liar?" I tell him no, just that I can't process a refund. He sighs loudly and says, "This is what's wrong with people your age. No respect and no common sense." I keep my tone calm and repeat the policy. He then asks, "So what am I supposed to do with this?" I suggest contacting the manufacturer since it may still be under warranty. He laughs and says, "I'm not calling some hotline in India." At this point, the line behind him is growing. He notices and raises his voice. "Everyone hear this? They sell junk and won't take it back." A woman behind him quietly mutters, "Sir, it's been years." He spins around and says, "Mind your business." I call my manager. The manager explains again that we can't take back the multi-year-old used item with no receipt. He looks at my manager and says, "Unbelievable. I've been shopping here longer than you've been alive." My manager responds politely, and we appreciate that. But the policy is the same for everyone. He grabs the coffee maker, shakes his head, and says, I'll never shop here again. My manager replies, I'm sorry to hear that. Have a good day. He leaves. Later, a 1-star review pops up saying we were ageist and trained to disrespect seniors. My coworkers think we handled it perfectly, and my manager says I was professional. My dad says I should have just helped the guy out. So, am I the a-hole for enforcing the return policy on an older customer who expected special treatment because of his age? To be honest, I don't think it really had anything to do with age. I think this was just a cranky old person who fancied the line back in my day because they think that that actually works sometimes. I don't know what the policy was, say, 20 years ago when it came to returning items, but I'm pretty sure if you bought a coffee maker 2 years ago, from most retailers, whether or not you even still had the receipt, you're likely not going to get your money back for it if it stops working. Most items like that have a 1-year manufacturer's warranty, and it is a limited warranty. So chances are, whether you spent, I don't know, $15 on this coffee maker or even $100 on the coffee maker, I don't know how fancy it was, after a year, you're not likely going to be able to do much about it if it stops working. And as far as this person's dad saying you should have just helped the guy out, it's like, well, this dude just worked at the customer service desk. It's not like he really had any say in the matter. If he wanted to override the policy, chances are he would have had to talk to the manager about it and get permission. So that's silly. And the attitude of this person trying to return their coffee maker was definitely silly as well. It sucks that it only lasted a couple of years, but sometimes things just don't last. And especially nowadays, it really seems like things just aren't made the way they used to be in terms of longevity, which is sad, but there's nothing that a big box retailer is going to be able to do for you because they're not going to be able to get their money back for it either, you know? At the end of the day, it is a business. If you're really that pissed off about it, and understandably so, you're best off speaking to the manufacturer if you want even the possibility of something getting done about it. So that's all we got on this one today. Let me know in the comments which one of these stories you thought was the most ridiculous. It's definitely given me some flashbacks to my retail days, and I definitely don't miss dealing with people who just don't understand the concept of return policies. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.